So anyway, the big wheel, that's from a marble cutting factory around here. So they've rescued it and they've used it as deco. Legend has it that every year the wheel spins and it's coming out with bottles of champagne in each little bucket there. I don't suppose that's true. At least I've not seen it happen. But yeah. Anyway, this amazing little community garden, it's actually being taken care of by the local residents. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. Yeah, what a day. It's so the site was bombed. 7 houses were completely destroyed through the Second World War. And then it became a little bit of a wasteland, really. In the 70s, the council put a couple of swings, sorry, but they didn't really take care of them. And this full area, it's known as the Paradise Project. What happened is that it used to be a place with Victorian houses that were built in the 1880s, most of them 1881 to be precise. They had been built to accommodate the railway workers, mainly in Vauxhall station. And so this site had been damaged with a bomb and it never fully recovered. And in the 70s, the London authorities they bought 90 houses here, compulsory. You had to sell your house to the council because they wanted to build a school. So out of a few months, 90 houses were completely emptied. Nicole, it is Nathalie, my guide, the group. So suddenly, all those accommodations were empty, and squatters moved in. It had been squatted before. Some of them had been after the war, but suddenly a lot of squatters moved in. There were over 300 of them out of those 90 houses. And in 81, Labour came into power, and the evictions, they were not a priority anymore. So those squatters settled in. And some of them even managed to get some grant, some money to improve the houses and improve the little square. And some of them are still there today. About 20 of them are still here, still alive. And a lot of those accommodations today, they belong to some of their descendants. Because they basically, it's always hard to get squatters out of your property, but those properties they belong to the council anyway, so it wasn't really a priority. So those guys stayed here. They had an amazing community because, well, first they were kind of able to choose their neighbors. Imagine that, because you can choose your house, you can buy your house, but you can never choose your neighbors usually. Well, here they could. And they created an amazing community. Some of them didn't have water, or some of them didn't have electricity, but they would go and shower at their neighbors, And eventually they've been able to redo their houses. And they, to give you an idea, still today it's a place where you help one another. We've got a pump for the bicycles here. So that's this type of little community feeling. In the little garden that we've seen, they've got some yoga classes. They've got some how do they call it? How they have a term for it. If you have a problem with your computer or anything, well, there's a special day once a month or maybe once every 2 months that they do the tech for one another. They can help you with your computer. So it's still very much today an amazing community. And so they've got little activities and anything that, it's like a perfect neighborhood. They called it the Paradise Project. Because in the late 80s, they were finally able to buy those properties. They created a co-op, and they were able to buy the properties. the cafe, that was amazing. So they had created a community cafe. They would go on dumpster dive. In Vauxhall, we've got the Covent Garden Market, which is well, you know, we had a fruit and veg market in Covent Garden. When it moved outside of the center, it came to Vauxhall. So of course, every day they were wasting fruit and vegetables. So the squatters here, they would go and collect from the bins, and they used to actually cook it in the little community cafe. So that's amazing. At first it was free, then they were charging like something like a pound, so very, very small amount of money. And they'll all have wasted food for dinner. It was vegetarian at first. So an amazing little community. Today, those houses, I've just checked on Zoopla, there's one for sale, 1.2 millions. The last squatters, the last squatted house was sold in 2005, to give you an idea. And they even had a nightclub, because one of the properties didn't have a roof anymore. The roof was damaged, so no one could move in. So Jennifer, we are in Vauxhall, but the square, it's called Bonington Square. And so yeah, they had one of the properties they couldn't really squat because it was too cold, so they made it a nightclub and a party house. So if I could go back in time, if I had to live in the 80s, I would want to live here. Well, still today, if I could afford it, I'd love to live here. I'm not too far. I'm less than 10 minutes away on the bicycle. But to give you an idea, we're like a mile, just a mile from Westminster. And from here, it's quite cool. So you can see those Victorian houses, and behind it, it's an area that we call Dubai on Thames. Vauxhall, well, 9 Elm, where you have the US Embassy and everything. We call it Dubai on Thames because some of the buildings are very original. Like the new US Embassy is, it's got a swimming pool. It's, well, not the embassy itself, but the building at Embassy Gardens, they've got a flying swimming pool. So you can swim in the sky. So that's why they call it Dubai on Thames, because it's rather impressive. Anyway, let's head towards Vauxhall. So Vauxhall, you might know the name because of the cars. I know if you are from the continent, Vauxhall is actually Opel in France or most of Europe. Vauxhall, it comes from Vauxhall. Fox de Bretet was a baron at the time of King John. King John, he was the bad king in Robin Hood, and at that time they had the Baron Wars and the signing of the Magna Carta and all that, and Fox de Bretet was a big supporter of the king, and I'm getting used to YouTube now because, on YouTube, they don't want any kids in the picture. So if I see a kid, boom, back to my face. He was a big supporter of the King John, and he was given a manor here by Vauxhall Bridge. So they called it Vauxhall, because a hall as a house, as a manor. And over the years, Vauxhall became Vauxhall. And Fox de Bretet, he had a griffin on his armories. And if you look at the Vauxhall cars, what is the logo? It's a little griffin. So they've taken the griffin from Fox de Bretet. And so the cars originally, they were built around here. So that's why they called them Vauxhall. Anyway, we're going towards the Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens. They have just been renamed the Pleasure Gardens. They used to be called Spring Gardens, but now it's back to the Pleasure Gardens. They were an amazing place for nightlife for about 150 years, from the mid 17th century to the beginning of the 19th century. At the time, so Vauxhall Bridge did not exist. So if you wanted to have a night out at the Pleasure Gardens here, you'd have to take a boat. So that was already part of the party. You'd probably have a few drinks before to jump on the boat, and you'd come down here. The Pleasure Gardens were charging a shilling. So that's quite a big amount of money at the time, but they wanted to make sure they didn't have too much, poor people coming in. And they have been created by a guy called Jonathan Tyers. He was from Bermondsey, and that was the place to be. So you'd have entertainment, you'd have a lot of debauchery. It was a bit like an urban brothel, really. Am I freezing? No, it looks good on my side. There were music, there were art. William Hogarth was a friend of Jonathan, so he used to have some art here as well. There were music, and for the artist as well, that was the place to be. Handel performed here a few times. Apparently, Handel, it's the guy from Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. I've got no rhythm, but you know what I mean. And in terms of artists, that was the place to be. And if you look at the little figures up there, we've got an amazing Georgian lady with a modern boy giving her flowers. So the gardens were just a very cool place to hang around. So I said it was 1 shilling. It actually went up to 2 shillings when they started to do fireworks. And in 1835, actually, that's also the place from which they flew I think his name was Charles Green, the guy that beat the record of balloon flight. He went the further that they had ever been. And the next record was actually beaten by an aircraft. Anyway, we'll just go a bit further down the garden because I want to see if the alpacas are still there. We've got a little Vauxhall farm here. Usually they remove the alpaca about 3 p.m., but because it's a bank holiday, Saturday, they might still be out there. So the gardens were just the place to be. You'd come to party, you'd come to have fun, but you'd also come to be seen. And that went on for about nearly 2 centuries, really. They actually copied them. Apparently, they copied them in Paris and in Tennessee. Nashville is in Tennessee, right? They were very, very, very popular. I don't want to get you too excited, guys. I don't think they're here anymore. I don't see them. Let's go. But no, they're not here. Oh, well, no alpacas. I expected it. Usually they remove them about 3 p.m. Anyway, so that's the gardens. Today, it's like a normal park. We used to have, apparently they did a similar garden as the Pleasure Garden in Nashville. That's what I read, at least. I've not been, but yeah. And the gardens eventually had to close because they were full of prostitutes. They had those dark alleyway. They used to do masquerades. So you'd come with a mask. That was quite handy if you wanted to do some naughty stuff in the bushes. And eventually, that was a bit too much, too disreputable. So they closed them. And the name came back recently, so they're now. All right, no comments. No, I'll tell you later. There was a guy targeting me with a can of beer. But anyway, he's missed twice. Anyway, so behind the railway there, you can see a bit of the MI6. So that's an empty cantish. I think he just saw I was live, and he was live, so he was like, yeah, let's distract the live. Anyway, so we can see a bit of the MI6 in the distance, but let me show you a pub. We have it's a party place. Vauxhall has been a bit cleaned up in the last few years, but really it's always been a party place and a lot of gay clubs. To give you an idea, when I first moved to London, well, I used to come here party quite a lot myself. You could party non-stop from Friday night to Tuesday morning. You could go from a party to an after party, just changing the clubs, but you could, yeah. So a lot of party, a lot of drugs, and this park was always full of people partying or after partying or hangover. And when they kind of redeveloped the area of Nine Elms with all those skyscrapers and those very expensive flats, they tried to kind of well, get the drug dealers caught and all that. So it's a little bit cleaner now, but it's still a party place. And I'll show you an amazing gay pub, the Royal Vauxhall Tavern. It's actually a grade 2 listed building. It is listed only because of its importance for the LGBTQ plus community. It dates back to 1865, and they started after the war doing drag shows, and still today it's very inclusive. It's not only for gay men. You've got some lesbian nights, you've got a lot of different events, and we had a very famous royal visit. Well, famous. Take that story with a pinch of salt, because there's only one witness that is still around. If you are from the UK, you might remember we had some in the 80s. We had some TV presenters, Kenny Everett and Cleo Rocos. Well, the two of them were actually friends with Freddy Mercury, and apparently one night they were at home, Freddy Mercury, Cleo and Kenny. We know because Cleo Rocos, she's published a book in 2013 called The Power of Positive Drinking, and that's where she told the story. So apparently one night they were at home at Kenny's flat in 88 with Diana. They were watching Golden Girls. You might remember the show Golden Girls. They were not actually watching. They were doing one of my favorite games. It's an improvisation game. You turn the sound off on the television and you speak for them. It's usually very good when you have a soap opera. So you improvise their lines. And that's exactly what Freddie and Diana were doing with Kenny and Cleo. And apparently Freddie was like, oh, let's go to the Royal Vauxhall Tavern. And they were like, no, we cannot go with Diana. And Diana was like, let the girl have some fun. And apparently, according to Cleo Rocos, Diana dressed up as a man with like a khaki jacket and a hat and sunglasses. And yeah, Princess Diana. She well, technically she was not a princess. She was Lady Diana, Princess of Wales. We call her princess, but technically Princess of Wales is a title of its own. So yeah, amazing. And Lady Diana came here dressed up as a man, went to the RVT for a drink, and no one recognized her apparently. And exactly, the people's princess, Natasha. And so if that story is true, well, I don't see why Cleo Rocos would lie. Well, apart from selling a book. But yeah, it's been visited by Lady Di. Well, we do know that she used to kind of go incognito, so why not here? Anyway, we are now in front of the MI6. So military intelligence number 6. We've got the MI5 on the other side of the river. So the MI5, that's the domestic spies. I was going to say flights. And the MI6, it's the international spies. So it's one of the, it's meant to be a secret organization, but really it's one of the most famous organizations in the world, thanks to Ian Fleming. And if you've seen Skyfall, they make the building explode in Skyfall. So quite an interesting building. And I was talking about gay clubs and drugs on the other side. On the other side, in the arches there, you still have a gay sauna today, but there used to be a club called Aria, where everyone was really high on drugs in the terrace, right under the nose of the MI6. But that's not what they deal with, you know. And the spies today, well, I don't know much about spies because, well, that's the point, isn't it? But the spies today, they're still very active. If anything, you have more spies than before because now you have digital spies. And we believe over 3,000. It's hard to tell because, you know, they create fake company and they all operate undercover. You might all have the image of James Bond. It's, you know, some of the techniques might be the same, but the thing is, it's probably not that glamorous because they have to, you know, they're always hidden, really. And but it's still very much active. Actually, in 2010, we had a very mysterious case just across the river in Pimlico, a spy in a bag. Yes, you've heard this right, a spy in a bag. There was a young agent at the MI6. He was like into crypto, like a code breaker and a code maker. He disappeared. So eventually the police entered his flat, but weeks later, and as they got in, it was in August. The flat was extremely warm, like if they had been, if someone had put the heating on, and the police constable, PC Gallagher, ventured in the flat, and when he opened the bathroom, he spotted a very large bag in the bathtub, a big red bag that was actually locked with the zip was zipped up and it was locked with a little lock. As he tried to move the bag, the smell was unmistakable, and there were some blood, red liquid going down the tab. And because of the occupation of the young man, he was a spy, the police struggled because they did not. So straight away, the agents were called in. So the agent came to the flat to take over before the police, maybe removing evidence, maybe planting evidence, who knows? And then the police, so Scotland Yard struggled because they couldn't obviously interview the colleagues because they were all agents. They could, but not straight. They had to use a different company and they couldn't do it live and stuff. And they didn't know what had been done in the flat by the agents before to be able to check for forensics or anything themselves. And he was, so the young man was in the bag in a fetal position. So how did he get in that bag? We don't know. I mean, he might have been quite flexible. His name was Gareth Williams. He was from Wales. And still today, it's still a massive mystery because it could have been a suicide, but there are easiest way to die rather than putting yourself in a bag, zipping the bag, locking the bag, and wait until you suffocate. It could have been an accident. He could have been practicing for a cover, because if you are a spy, you might want to practice for escape, or if you are flexible, you might try to put yourself into a bag. But why would he have locked the lock? There's an expert that tried 300 times to put themselves in the bag and lock the lock. They couldn't make it, but then eventually they realized that it is possible by moving the fabric from the inside. I mean, crazy story. And some say that the agent have planted evidence because in the flat the police found some ladies' shoes and about the equivalent of £80,000 of women's clothing, branded item, fancy stuff. And as far as his friends and family knew, he did not have a girlfriend. And then they looked into his computer and there were some bondage websites and some claimed that they had seen him in a gay bar. And the family knew nothing of that, of course. And he had complained to his sister that the guys at the MI6, they were a bit too macho, he didn't like the macho atmosphere. So suddenly they kind of tried to make it look like it was BDSM, going wrong, that maybe putting himself into a bag was some kind of bondage. And maybe an accident went to what's happening. Sorry, I've lost you. For some suspect that it might be the agents that have tried to tarnish his reputation to make it look like some weird sex game, when he might actually have been murdered by the secret services. Who knows? And that was in 2010, so not that long ago. So when you see James Bond and stuff, this kind of stuff really happened. And the case has actually been reopened because in 2015 there's a Russian descender that claimed that he had been murdered by the KGB. The KGB is no longer KGB today; it's the SVR, I think, the modern KGB. But there's no evidence of any of that. They said that the Russian had approached him, so they wanted him to become a double agent, and he said no. So yeah, a lot of mystery, but we still don't know. What is the name of the bridge? So Charles, I'm on the Vauxhall Bridge. So the Vauxhall Bridge is fairly new. It's 1906, if I remember right. And so that's, of course, the River Thames. And we have found next to the Vauxhall Bridge some donations in the river. Well, we think they are donations, offerings to the god. You might know Old Father Thames is a god figure that looks a bit like, there's many different representation of Old Father Thames. So it could have been for the gods of the river. There's an Iron Age shield that was found here, for example. The building with the curve, those ones, as far as I know, Soshana, it's accommodations, it's flats. Yeah. Bodies, no, more donations, more like offerings, coins, pottery. Well, it's always been, people often kind of drop stuff into the river for good luck or for to avoid misfortunes. But I think there used to be a little key here in Vauxhall, a little Roman key, potentially even specially for those offerings to the river. Let me turn around so you can see a little bit more of Nine Elm and all those modern buildings. So that's a lot of those are very modern. It keeps growing and growing, and if you went a bit further down, you'll end up at Battersea Power Station. Some of you might have been with me a few months ago in a different snippet. And we'll go down here to see a Voyager. Let me show you my face again, because we've got kids again. So we've got an amazing artist that has done a series of sculptures all over the globe, really. He's from Marseille. Well, he's actually from Morocco originally, but he's lived in Marseille. And they are called, well, if you translate in English, they'll be called the Travelers, but they're called the Voyagers. So that's why I thought I had to show you. And the latest one that we've got here, so that's our London one, it's fairly new. I'm not even sure when exactly it arrived, but I think it's less than a month, because I had not... I often cycle past, but sometimes I probably don't pay that much attention. But yeah. So the Voyagers series, some of you might have seen some of them. There's one in Marseille, there's one in Italy, I think maybe Venice. So there's quite a few of them. They are known because they're missing part of the statue. What the artist wanted to represent, it's actually immigrant or migrants. It depends how you see it, because he believes that when you travel or when you move to a new country, you always leave a little bit of yourself behind. So that's the kind of like the metaphor behind it. But they are really cool. They always have a bag because he represents voyagers, so travelers. And there he is. So the artist is called Bruno Catalano. He was, I think his family is actually from Sicily, but he was born in Morocco. And I'll get a bit closer so you can see the detail. Yeah, I love it too. And I like modern statues in general, you know, like he's got Converse shoes and a modern bag. I'm going to turn around so you get a view with the MI6 in the background. Anyone with a fuzzy image? I think it seems to be good on my side. I had a little drop on the bridge, but now I'm good. Right, there we go. Fine for you, good. So yeah, it's probably, yeah, amazing view. And I think it's a good time of the day because the light, sometimes the light is too strong and it's not as good, but yeah. Cool. And there you go with the MI6 in the background. It's Bruno Catalano. Bruno Catalano. Yeah, that's a great shot. So we are now in Pimlico. We're right next to the Tate Modern Museum of Art. Is there a plaque? Yeah, I can show you the plaque. Give me 1 sec. I'll go back around. Yeah, Tate Britain. Yeah. Henry Tate. He was a grocer from Liverpool, and he made a fortune by commercializing the sugar cubes. And with his money, he accumulated a massive collection of art, and he decided to donate it to the nation, but government kind of snubbed him. They were like, "Oh, well, thank you, but we need a building as well." So he gave £80,000 to get a building, and then government was like, "Well, thank you, but we need the land as well." And then he said no. So that's how they ended up using the site of Millbank Prison around here. Because it was a former prison, it already belonged to government. So that's the Tate Britain. And then they had the Tate Modern. Right, and that's gonna be the end of the tour. Let me give you a last shot from this side. And let me know if you have any questions for me before we go. I'll go back to the river to give you a shot of the MI6 on its own as well. There we go. Thank you, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for coming today. Hope you enjoyed this little snippet of London.